"You're not family," my mother said into the mic. "Smile for the photos," my father added, not looking at me. "She made nothing of her degree," and Aunt sighed for laughs. "Is this necessary?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Stay, the wire memo and the manifest will speak for me." The projector hummed above the banquet table, a tired electric rasp. "Stay, let the documents speak first." They chose a grand ballroom, all mirrors and practice smiles. My parents love stages where praise echoes between silver and glass. Tonight their anniversary toast turned into a little trial about me. I kept my posture steady and counted a slow breath. Humiliation rises like heat, but air cools when you hold still. A waiter passed. His tray rattled softly, and I let my jaw loosen. People congratulated my brother with ritual sincerity and quick winks. He soaked it in like sunlight and kept glancing my way. The cordless mic wandered until it returned to my mother's hand. "Not everyone finds a real profession," she said, tilting her chin higher. A few guests laughed, then pretended to cough into linen napkins. I lifted my glass, touched it to my lips, and tasted nothing. My palms cooled against the stem while the projector fan murmured. I pictured my office wall, the FAA charter certificate framed straight. That paper sits behind my desk, boring to anyone chasing glamour. It names our authority to operate, and it carries my signature. Another sheet hides in a folder, the wire memo dated March. It is simple, exact, and time-stamped by the bank's back office. It shows equity transferred to me, not to my father's firm. Paper is quiet until the room needs something honest to hold. I didn't argue. I nodded when people asked polite questions. "What are you doing now?" someone asked, eyes sliding toward the bar. "I keep planes moving on time," I said, letting the answer rest. The ballroom smelled faintly of Lysol beneath the roses and pastry. Fluorescents flickered near the portable screen. The mantel clock ticked. My brother raised a glass and complimented our parents' discipline. He said success requires focus and measurable output, watching my face. I remembered another measure: safe departures, landings, and quiet thank yous. I excused myself and walked the hallway with measured steps. The air vent whirred overhead. Carpet muffled every heel strike. I touched my lanyard badge through the fabric and steadied my breath. Outside, the night air cooled my skin and cleared the noise. I held the car key between fingers and watched valet traffic. Brake lights pulsed red across the pavement like slow, stubborn heartbeats. A place with fewer mirrors and more calendars and checklists. A place where timestamps live and arrive without apology. I drove to the office because routine is a kind companion. The hangar slept behind the fence, sodium lights washing concrete pale. I swiped in and the door clicked like a metronome. Inside, the fridge hummed and the coffee machine blinked ready. Paper rasped as I pulled the manifest binder from the shelf. My name sits on the approval line for every manifest I sign. The pages felt cool, edges slightly rough against my fingertips. Ink holds steadier than pride when a room tries to tilt. Hangar office fluorescent buzz steady as a patient machine. I slid the March wire memo beside the charter certificate. If they doubt me, the dates will keep their shape. My shoulders softened while my jaw finally unclenched. "Tomorrow settles itself," I whispered, voice even again. The runway beyond the window looked like a silver ribbon. A de-icing truck idled its engine low as a distant hive. I opened my inbox and checked the morning departure schedule. Mr. Caldwell's itinerary sat there with a green confirmation. He is my parents' largest client and he respects schedules. He never needs flattery. He wants the paperwork to match promises. I printed the manifest for his leg from Dallas to Denver. The warm page slid out, smelling faintly of toner and heat. I initialed the bottom line and set it under a clip. My phone vibrated with a new message from Ava. "Everything good," she wrote, night shift nerves hidden in plain words. "Fine," I typed. "Engines know who shows up on time." I locked the office and stood by the window again. Cold glass touched my forehead. Outside, the beacon light blinked. A small, measurable pulse telling every pilot we were alive. I drove home slowly, keeping the radio low and sentences short. Old songs can lie about people changing. Paperwork rarely does. Porch rain tapped as clouds drifted in from the highway. I hung my blazer and folded the lanyard into a dish. The apartment smelled like clean laundry and a little machine oil. My hands cooled under tap water. I watched bubbles slide away. Sleep came like a careful clerk, not dramatic, not late. In dreams I heard applause, then engines cresting above quiet words. Morning would ask me to show up, not to shout. When dawn thinned the room, I paced once and checked my bag. Clipboard, pen, spare badge, and the March memo sealed in plastic. I breathed coffee steam, then left before the kettle finished. The sky over the terminal usually looks undecided until 9. Today it felt like fresh paper waiting for a patient signature. I parked an employee and walked past the security glass. Engines coughed awake. A fuel cart beeped along the line. A mechanic waved. His gloves were black with clean purpose. I felt the clipboard edge and let my shoulders settle. I have never needed my parents' microphone to be real. I have always needed accurate clocks and names spelled correctly. The rest of it, applause, comparisons, and rumor, turns out optional. Tomorrow engines and names will stand beside my work. The terminal wakes in stages, lights hum, doors hiss, voices gather by the counter. My badge clicks against the lanyard. I nod to the line crew and take the clipboard. Morning air smells of jet fuel and cheap coffee, the scent of schedule and proof. Ava leans on the reception desk, hair pinned, eyes alert from a long night. Everything green, I ask. She grins. Except the vending machine. It ate my dollar again. We both laugh, quiet but real, the kind of sound that steadies a shift. Mr. Caldwell's file waits in the folder marked Times Priority Client *. His company controls half my parents' firm revenue, though they never mention that part. I flip to the manifest, read each name aloud to double-check. One line carries a signature block that will matter more than any toast. Factbox: manifest, an official record of all passengers signed before takeoff. Engines idle outside, low, and even a heartbeat against the hangar walls. I review flight timing, fuel logs, maintenance notes, everything neat, time-stamped, accountable. Ava sets 2 mugs down. You sleep at all? Enough to know today matters, I answer, voice steady but shallow. The hangar door slides open with a metallic groan. Cold air drifts in. The coffee steam curls like breath meeting truth. My father's words from last night echo faintly, times not everyone finds a real profession. But this hangar has never asked for applause, only accuracy. A paper trail is louder than any mic once the room gets quiet. Caldwell's car's 5 minutes out, Ava calls, glancing at the monitor. Good. Let's keep the ramp clear. She nods, half smile, returning the small faith between women who show up early. I step outside to meet the driver, wind tugging my sleeves. The jet gleams under thin sunlight, polished metal holding a mirror to the sky. My name sits on the manifest again, proof of role, not relation. I straighten the folder, hear the paper rasp like a quiet applause. When Caldwell steps out, he looks exactly as remembered, unhurried, neat, decisive. He shakes my hand. You're Clara Mayfield? Yes, sir. You're the one keeping these flights on time. I try to make the dates speak for themselves. He signs the page without ceremony, pen scratching across the printed line. His name lands beside mine, black ink binding fact to identity. He glances at the jet, then at me. Impressive operation. Thank you, I say, pulse calm but visible in my wrist. The engine's warm. The cabin door closes with practiced grace. Ava waves from the steps, headset, crooked grin unhidden. I stand by the wing, clipboard tucked against my chest, wind lifting my hair. The noise builds, then steadies into a single promise, proof travels faster than gossip. Engines faded into distance, leaving a hush that rang inside the hangar. I stood still, the echo of turbine rhythm still pacing in my chest. Ava returned from the tarmac, cheeks flushed, eyes bright from the climb. He signed clean, she said. Everything uploaded. I nodded. Manifest copy sent to operations, time-stamped 902, server verified. That line 902 felt like a small victory, a digit that could stand up in court. The coffee percolator burped once, grounding the silence. I sat at my desk, the laminate cool beneath my palms. Paper edges whispered as I stacked the signed documents, straightening them like thoughts. The quiet didn't last. My phone vibrated, an unlisted number. I answered. Mayfield Charter Operations. Clara, my mother's voice, careful, sugar mixed with steel. I heard you ran into one of our clients, she said. I paused. You mean Mr. Caldwell? Yes, she replied. He mentioned a director, Mayfield. I thought it was Peter. No, mother. It's me. Silence. Then the faint clink of her bracelet against glass. Well, she said, I suppose you've found something that suits you. Her tone tried for neutral but cracked on the last word. I found consistency, I said. The kind you can sign for. She exhaled. Your father's curious. We'll talk when you have time. After the next flight, I replied. Schedules come first. The call ended with static. I let the phone rest face down. Air moved through the vents with a dry whisper smelling faintly of paper dust. Ava peeked in. Everything okay, just background noise, I said. We'll keep the focus here. We reviewed tomorrow's list: fuel suppliers, maintenance, logs, crew schedules. Every page bore my initials, proof of order in a world built on motion. Outside, the sun hit the hangar door and a thin beam crossed the floor. It touched the edge of the clipboard, glinting like a seal on good work. The hum of the fridge joined the rhythm of a distant power tool. Work has its own choir when no one interrupts. Ava gathered her coat. You staying late probably. Paperwork prefers company. Then I'll leave the lamp on, she said, smiling before stepping out. I watched the beam fade as the door closed behind her. Light moved as it always does toward whatever is ready to be seen. And I knew sooner or later someone else would read the same line I did. The one where my name inked clean finally meant proof, not potential. By Wednesday, the whisper reached the supply office before I did. The clerk, usually cheerful, avoided eye contact as she printed invoices. Paper slid from the machine in long, uncertain sighs. I signed the first form, felt the hesitation in her pause. Problem, I asked, keeping my tone even. She looked toward her supervisor's door, then back at me. Your brother called earlier, she said softly. Asked if we still bill Mayfield Aviation. The words landed like cold air across my collar. He said the family firm should handle payments now, she added quickly. My signature pen tapped once against the counter. Did he mention why? Something about consolidation. You know how rumors start. I smiled without showing teeth. We're independent, I said. Invoices stay on file. She nodded, relief flickering like a match. I'll note that. Please do, I said. Dates matter more than voices. She almost smiled back before handing me the receipt. Outside, wind moved through the alley behind the hangar. A fuel truck hissed, engines idling like restless thoughts. I traced the printed timestamp 1043 a.m. Crisp black against white. A small square of truth, unimpressive to gossip, invaluable to record keeping. Inside, the air vent whirred, steady and kind. Ava found me at the desk, frowning at the paperwork. Trouble, she asked. Not really. Just family practice, rewrite history while the ink's wet. She leaned against the door frame. Want me to call accounting? No need. I've got the memo ready. I opened the file, slid the March wire confirmation to the top. Factbox wire memo, digital bank record, showing transfer of funds and ownership. The digits gleamed under the desk lamp, neat as typed boundaries. Everything traces here, I said. Anyone curious can follow the paper. Ava nodded, expression turning fierce in a quiet way. They'll hate that more than a speech, she said. Good, I replied. Silence should make them nervous. For a moment we just listened, printer hum, clock tick, faint rain on steel. Work has its rhythm. Dignity lives somewhere between those sounds. I remembered the gala laughter, my father's satisfied smirk beside the microphone. Let them keep their spotlight. I have timestamps. The phone buzzed again, this time from a logistics partner in Dallas. Morning, Clara, he said. Just confirming your authority on the new invoice. Yes, I said, firm and brief. Authority stands. Good, he answered. Caldwell requested direct routing to you. Thought you should know. I thanked him, let the call end, and sat still. Wind brushed the hangar windows. Somewhere a distant plane lifted free. Sometimes victory arrives disguised as paperwork, dull, dated, but impossible to erase. I stacked the invoices and sealed them with the March memo inside. Tomorrow would test whose records the client believes and whose words dissolve. I started early, the hangar still dim, the fridge humming beside the wall. Stacks of folders waited like unspoken witnesses lined along the counter. The paper smell mixed with jet fuel, a scent that meant control and proof. Ava arrived with a thermos and a careful smile. Long night, she asked. Short sleep, I said, sorting receipts into labeled piles. She set the coffee down, steam curling between us like morning breath. Peter called again, she added. Left a message asking for records. He'll have to request them in writing, I said. Standard protocol. She raised an eyebrow. You expect him to, no. But expecting integrity costs less than losing it. I opened the March folder, the one holding the wire memo and the first invoice. Each sheet bore a timestamp signature and routing number, dull but indestructible. Everything from that transfer proves ownership, I said, sliding it toward her. She studied the line. Transfer Clara Mayfield, operational equity completed. Guess that shuts down the family consolidation theory, she murmured. Truth has no audience requirement, I replied. The printer clacked alive, feeding new logs from our maintenance system. Factbox operations log, detailed report of all aircraft inspections and sign-offs. Numbers streamed like quiet rain, dates, initials, verified conditions. Each entry another nail in the lid of rumor. At mid-morning a courier arrived with a brown envelope marked Times Legal asterisk. I signed for it and tore the seal carefully. Inside lay photocopies of emails between Peter and our supplier. He'd written, all Mayfield accounts revert to parent ownership by month's end. Below that, the supplier's hesitant reply awaiting confirmation from operations director. My title typed there, not spoken, not guessed. The document itself corrected the lie without me saying a word. I set the pages flat beneath the desk lamp and felt the heat rise. Not anger, just the kind of warmth that comes before clean air. Ava read over my shoulder. You could send this to Caldwell, she said. I could, I answered, but he'll find it on his own. She laughed softly. You really believe that? Yes. People who deal in flight schedules trust what's on record. We organized copies into 3 sets: legal, internal, and client. The stapler snapped once, sealing each packet like a boundary line. Wind pressed against the window, light shimmered across the polished wings outside. For a second I let myself imagine silence after truth lands, not triumph, not applause, just peace that doesn't need witnesses. When Ava left for lunch, I stayed with the papers spread like a map. Every mark traced the story I refused to tell out loud. The hum of the air vent carried a note of calm finality. Tomorrow's meeting would show who really owned what on paper in daylight. The day unfolded, crisp and bright, runway gleaming under clear Texas sun. I arrived before dawn, coffee in hand, the scent cutting through jet fuel haze. Engines idled low across the tarmac, a steady heartbeat before confrontation. Ava met me near the hangar, office headset looped around her wrist. They called, she said. Your parents. Said they're dropping by, to greet Caldwell. Of course they were drawn to attention like moths to a camera flash. I smiled slightly. Then we'll greet them with accuracy. Inside, I arranged the signed manifest, wire memo, and operations agreement. Each document lay flat, crisp, unflinching beneath the fluorescent hum. Paper doesn't worry who reads it, it just stays true to its ink. Ava checked her clipboard. Caldwell's ETA 9:40. Then let's keep this hangar spotless, I said. No room for dust or rumor. By 9:30, a black sedan rolled past the gate. My parents stepped out first, dressed for photographs, not weather. Mother's perfume carried ahead of her words. Father's silence held judgment's shape. Clara, he began, you might have mentioned your little project here. I steadied my breath. It's not little. It's licensed. Peter said this company files under the family trust, he added. I handed him the March wire memo, the stamp clear as sunrise. Check the routing, I said. Funds came from me, not the trust. He hesitated, eyes narrowing, numbers erasing certainty faster than pride. Mother crossed her arms. Anyone can print forms. Correct, I said. Few can back them with FAA audits. Mr. Caldwell's arrival cut the air like a chord resolving. He stepped out, shook my hand first, and looked around the hangar. Well run as ever, Director Mayfield, he said. Everything ready for the Denver leg? Yes, sir. Manifest confirmed, fuel-topped, crew cleared for weather. He turned to my parents, friendly, unaware of the tension. You must be proud, your daughter runs an excellent operation. My mother blinked. Yes, of course. Father managed a stiff nod. Remarkable. Progress. Caldwell smiled, signing the departure line beside my initials. Factbox manifest signature confirms operational command and legal responsibility for the flight. His pen moved steadily, each stroke an unspoken verdict. He passed the clipboard back. Send me the updated schedule tonight, Clara. Yes, sir. My voice stayed level, though something eased behind it. Engines roared to life, wind curling through the open doors. Caldwell boarded the stairs, folding with hydraulic precision and finality. My parents stood still, framed by light clothes fluttering in the exhaust. No one spoke. The proof had already finished the conversation. When the jet lifted, its shadow swept clean across the concrete. Ava whispered, "That looked like justice." "Not justice," I said softly. "Just truth written properly." The hangar lights flickered, once steady again. Every boundary I'd built now had witnesses, and none required my voice. The hangar settled into stillness once the jet disappeared into blue. For a long moment no one moved, only the air vent hummed like a heartbeat. Ava busied herself with logs, giving me space to breathe. My parents lingered by the door, silhouettes framed against sunlight. Mother spoke first, voice small but polished. "You handled that well." "Thank you," I said. "It's my job." She glanced toward the desk where the manifest still rested like evidence. "I didn't realize you had this level of involvement," she murmured. "You never asked," I replied, not unkindly. Father removed his glasses, rubbing the frame against his sleeve. "You might have told us," he said. "It's not nothing." "I tried," I said. "It wasn't the kind of success you valued." He sighed, gaze fixed on the tarmac. "Perhaps we measured wrong." Those words landed heavier than the earlier insults. Not apology, not yet, but the first crack in a wall long built. I closed the folder and stacked it neatly, giving the silence direction. Ava approached quietly. "You okay?" "Yes," I said. "Better than last night." She nodded, then whispered, "They'll think about this for a long time." "Let them," I answered. "Reflection is the least expensive tuition." The smell of jet fuel drifted through the open hangar door. Wind carried a note of coffee from the break room, grounding the moment. Outside, the sun glanced off the runway like it was signing something. My mother reached into her purse, pulled out a napkin. She dabbed at her eyes, careful not to smudge pride or mascara. "You've built something real," she said softly. "That's impressive." "It's honest," I replied. "That's all I ever wanted it to be." Father looked up, straightened his tie. "If Caldwell continues this contract, he will," I interrupted gently. His words already on paper. He nodded, once a reluctant peace treaty. "We'll be in touch," he said, and turned toward the car. Their footsteps echoed against the polished floor, fading into the open air. Ava exhaled slowly. "You could have rubbed it in." "No need," I said. "The paper already spoke louder." She smiled. "Still, that was a sight." I chuckled. "Justice wears plain clothes here." We cleaned the desks, logged the day's events, and shut off extra lights. In the fading brightness, I ran a hand along the smooth clipboard. Every scratch and corner held a story of labor, not lineage. Tomorrow's flights waited, calm and predictable, a comfort after chaos. Outside, the wind softened. The hum of distant traffic filled the gap. For the first time in years, I didn't feel smaller than my silence. Dignity, I realized, isn't noise, it's the choice to stay measured. Ava locked the gate behind us, her keys clinking like punctuation. The world didn't cheer. It simply stayed level. And that balance at last felt like home. The next morning arrived bright and clean, the kind of light that forgives everything. I poured coffee, steadying the cup while reading the day's flight board. Caldwell's return meeting appeared in bold print, arrival 11:15, briefing at noon. Ava whistled low. "He's bringing the investors this time." I nodded. "Then we keep it calm and factual." "That's your specialty," she said, grinning. "Truth travels smoother than talk," I answered, sliding the manifest into its folder. By 10 the terminal buzzed with quiet energy, phones ringing, printers spitting schedules. I walked the floor, checking every clipboard and greeting each mechanic by name. The scent of polish and warm metal filled the air, steady and familiar. The sedan convoy arrived right on time, doors opening in practiced rhythm. Caldwell led the group, jacket buttoned, expression neutral but kind. "Director Mayfield," he greeted. "Ready for our audit review?" "Yes, sir. Records are printed and digital, whichever you prefer." He smiled. "Both, I think. I trust paper more than passwords." We entered the meeting room overlooking the hangar bay. Sunlight hit the windows, scattering gold across the table's surface. Ava set water glasses down, quiet as punctuation. Caldwell leafed through the binder I'd prepared, pages rustling like calm applause. Every signature cross-verified, he noted aloud. Maintenance reports, consistent invoices, timely. He looked up. And this March wire memo, your personal capital injection? Yes, I said. To secure independence from family control. His eyebrows lifted slightly. That explains the discrepancy on their side. Across the glass wall my parents entered with hesitant smiles. They'd come expecting influence, not transparency. Caldwell motioned for them to join us. Good timing, he said. He tapped the memo page with his pen. Your daughter runs a model operation. Mother folded her hands. We're aware now. Father cleared his throat. Impressive, certainly. Their voices carried the brittle edge of people learning new grammar. Caldwell continued, I've decided all logistics contracts will remain under Clara's supervision. He turned toward me. You've earned that trust line by line. Applause wasn't necessary. The hum of the engines outside filled the space. I met my parents' gaze, not gloating, just steady. This business values results, I said. And respect on record. Father nodded once. You have both. Mother managed a small, genuine smile. You always did. We just didn't see it. The meeting closed with handshakes and quiet goodbyes. Caldwell lingered last. You've proven something rare, Miss Mayfield Grace, under scrutiny. Thank you, I said. Paperwork helps. He laughed softly. Indeed. It keeps everyone honest. When the room emptied, sunlight deepened across the polished floor. Ava entered, eyes shining. You did it. We did, I corrected. Proof works better shared. She nodded. And quieter too. Outside the engines roared alive, their rhythm even and calm. I watched the jet lift, shadow gliding across the roof like a promise kept. For once I didn't need to explain a single thing. Truth had already signed my name. That evening I met my parents for dinner at a quiet bistro near the river. No cameras, no crowd, only the soft clink of cutlery and low conversation. The city lights shimmered through the glass as if the skyline was exhaling. My father stood when I arrived, gesture awkward but sincere. Clara, he said, we didn't expect today to end like that. I smiled, setting my coat over the chair. Neither did I. But it felt right. Mother reached for the menu, hands careful, eyes avoiding the obvious. The waiter poured water. The faint scent of lemon cut through tension. You've built something remarkable, Father said after a pause. Something steady, I corrected. Remarkable belongs to people chasing applause. He nodded slowly. Then steady is better. We've been chasing noise too long. We ate in companionable silence for several minutes, plates warm beneath our hands. Every so often I caught Mother glancing at me like she was memorizing posture. Finally, she said, your brother will need time to understand all this. I know, I replied. Time and records usually travel together. She smiled faintly at that. I used to think your quietness was avoidance. It was preparation, I said. Silence gives details a chance to line up. She reached across the table and brushed my hand, hesitant but real. You've grown stronger than we realized, she whispered. No, I said gently. Just clearer about what matters. The waiter cleared dishes. The candle guttered low and steady. Outside rain tapped against the window, a sound too patient to rush. I felt the weight of the last week settle like dust finally resting. Father leaned back. We want to help if you'll let us. I considered measuring the line between forgiveness and repetition. You can support the work, I said. But not steer it. He smiled faintly. Reasonable terms. For once, I said, we agree on the fine print. They laughed softly, the way people do when relief arrives disguised as humility. For the first time their pride felt human, not heavy. When the check came, Father insisted, but I slid my card forward. Let this one be mine, I said. It's cleaner that way. Outside the air smelled of wet concrete and coffee from a nearby cafe. We stood beneath the awning, rainlight reflecting off parked cars. Mother hugged me quick and firm. We're proud of you, she said quietly. I'm glad, I replied. I just needed to earn it on paper. They drove away, taillights receding into a city finally calm. I walked along the river, shoes tapping in rhythm with the rain. Street lamps flickered on one by one like signatures across a long agreement. Dignity isn't a speech, it's a boundary written in steady ink. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's knowing the record will hold either way. As the night thinned, I felt peace settle beside truth, both breathing evenly. If this restored dignity, Subscribe then start times inheritance and elder dignity times for more quiet justice.